Welcome to the session. And still raising hand and waving to each other. Lovely to be back to Lean Agile London. I'm Andrea Darabos. It's my probably third time, if I remember. And last year I made a break because my birthday happens to fall always at the time of the conference. I'm here with you on my birthday. Thank you, everyone. And you are probably here because you are very curious about networks and networking and collaboration. And that's what I'm going to talk with you about today. 5 behaviors to master in the workplace. How to collaborate creatively. And this talk, as many of my talks, come from a source of passion, at the same time frustration. As an enterprise agile coach, I believe we underestimate the networks, so we can do more. So let's have a chat after the talk about it. I work as a consultant coach on enterprise journeys, and my small company is called Lean Advantage Limited. That's where I work. I would like to invite you to a forest. Imagine the last time you visited some outdoors, the great outdoors here in Britain or somewhere else, perhaps. And imagine what you saw. You saw an organization. In fact, there is no one directing the forest, so you experience self-organization the last time you walked in the forest. But not everything is visible in the forest to the human eye, to our senses. There is more going on in the forest, and that's what I will also share with you today. What else is there in our organizations below the surface? When we think about formal organizations or the visible, we see trees, plants, birds, organisms. Similarly, in an agile organization, I think the first thing we are looking for is probably teams. We are looking for teamwork, not just individuals. Yeah? So I believe that we focus too much on teams. I think there is more to formally appointed product owners, scrum masters, cross-functional teams. Totally need them, but there is more. And as Julie, very well, the previous speaker, summarized for us, we also like predictability. So there is a reason why many agile journeys focus on teams and cross-functional work, because this is where we have data. This is the domain of predictability and predictable decision-making. Yeah? So maybe you agree. I would like to invite you to think what might be below the surface, both in the forest and in our organizations. So those of you who studied biology, help me out here. Biology was my weakness at school, but what we see is mycelium. A fungal web connects every organism in nature, animals and plants. And they have a powerful network. Let's listen to a poet, A. Shelby, about mycelium. I said to the farmer, I am the apple in the seed. She replied, I am forests in a tree. The worm chimed in, I am the grind of perpetual return. What speaks this language of breath and drink every dweller understands? The earthy fungal web, cloaked in shade, composes life from death. So that's how important the underground might be in our forests and in our organizations. So I invite you to dive into this underground with me and with each other this afternoon. So what we will explore today is informal leadership. There is no formally appointed informal leader, doesn't make sense. People earn this role by trust, by creative leadership, by the actions they take. Also, this fungal web feels a bit chaotic, unpredictable, and uncomfortable, the underworld, the disruptors. Decision-making here is also very dynamic, unpredictable. Things are experimental, can go wrong as well. So let's look at the core thesis. The contrast I would like you to think about is gardening in a pot versus growing a forest. By focusing on agile teams and agile teams only, we are actually breaking up the social network. We are missing out on this interconnected web of life and death, the rejuvenation, the organic growth in our organizations. So I invite you to take more walks in the forests, and let's continue. So how we can do more coaching and focus on the organic, the chaotic, the fungal web of our organizations. So I would like you to take a moment to think about, in your role as a leader, technical leader, people leader, or coach, how much of your time do you spend on the left, predictable, controlled structures and data, so agile teams, cross-functional teams working on a workflow, and how much, what percentage do you allow and encourage the organic space, fluid time, emergent decision-making, and also intuition. What I love also, it's sporadic growth. It's not about scaling. It's allowing to go with the energy of the network, what is required, how much energy we still have in agility in our organization. So if it's more than 0%, raise your hand. You are already growing the organic, the emergent, creating space. Look around the room. Yeah, welcome. At least 30% of colleagues. So, meet the informal leader. I believe you are already one of them. And let's explore the behaviors of informal leadership. So informal leadership, a definition here from a page which summarizes commoning and commons. It's about earning the trust, an informal authority in your organization to guide and influence your peers. These colleagues and these behaviors make you a central point or a key point in the social network of the web of your organization. And how do we earn this trust? Well, it could be about technical expertise. It could be also about the person with the best humor, so charisma, and also, of course, social skills. Informal leaders tend to be well connected, so networking will be helpful here. And moving on, why we should care as coaches or leaders. Informal leaders are super valuable for us because they can drive change forward. They can help with accelerating problem solving. So it's not enough to be passionate about problems in the organization. By engaging the informal leaders who everyone follows and trusts, we can accelerate the change. And we have usually many of them in the organization. We can have even more. So let's check. What do you think could be 5 behaviors of informal leadership in an organization? So if you have papers around you, I invite you just to note down about 5 things informal leaders might do that help them earn the trust of their peers in their organization. So if you would like to, it's okay to pass, just giving you half a minute of concrete behaviors we may do to earn the social trust and to be able to informally influence in our organizations. And then we will compare notes. I will be super curious of the matches and also the diversity of what you think. There is science behind these leadership behaviors. It's called network analysis or social network analysis science. And all our telecom operators, banks, all our service providers use these network analytics on our also societal web or customer networks as well today. And what I would like to encourage here is that we use network analytics in our organizations for agile change journeys as well. So if you have at least 3 of those behaviors, let's compare notes. And I would like to say the first one, be on a quest. If you have something around vision or imagination, creative challenges, then you are on the similar track. Inviting people to join, encouraging voluntary participation would be the second behavior. Making something attractive and selling it, communicating it well. The third one, in the conference, we heard about this quite a bit, vulnerability. being able to say, I'm really struggling with this topic or challenge, genuinely need help, who can help here? Who would like to help? Asking for help. Bias for action, doing, experimenting, failing forward, trying again. And last but not least, offering criticism, surprising, not shying away from criticizing not people, but ideas, and for taking ideas forward in the organization. Why this matters? Well, we will see how we can leverage this underestimated important web in our change journeys. So how many of you have at least 3 on the list? Something similar in hand? Yeah? Is the list relatively intuitive? A few of you, thank you. We'll be curious about your differences and different perspectives. Being on a quest. I work with 2 organizations in parallel. In one organization, we have broken up the IT infrastructure into teams. Every team has their own channels, and communication goes on mainly in silos. In the other organization, very organically, however, someone started the effort to blog their work, to work publicly. And this small group of people, this behavior started to spread and take momentum. So we have an internal huge wiki page, and people are blogging about their challenges. So Quest is doing something difficult, challenging, hard things that take a long time and require resilience. So by encouraging blogging and a shared network in a large organization where publicly we are taking people on a quest, we are sharing not just successes but challenges, we have a fertile soil where collaboration informally can happen. Not only can you read, but of course comment, you can like, and interact with colleagues doing this. So I slightly worry, and I'm thinking about how can we encourage in the other organization, broken up to separate secret teams channels, where we don't have a single communication platform to encourage collaboration. How can we create that there in another context? So obviously, as an informal leader, making your challenge public, easy to understand, interesting, could be a first step. First behavior. Second one, inviting people to join, not doing it alone. We may know familiar formats here could be a lean coffee session or a coffee session simply, where we take 30 minutes to talk about the quest we are on, inviting people from outside department, especially when competencies are diverse and distinct, can give us new insights. In this conference, I listened to Anna's talk on governance and regulated industries. It was super interesting. What I took away is it's great to invite legal colleagues, for example, when we are working on a digital product launch. We never know. It's great to catch risk early. So making your quest public and inviting people to join, ideally out of your comfort zone, very distinct and different roles can make the likelihood of success and engagement present. And people appreciate when they have a chance to get out of their day-to-day and work on something different. Then the third one, ask for help. Yeah, I do this more and more as an agile coach. I feel that my work is successful if it will be done, and sooner or later I can hand over my role as an external coach to internal colleagues. So really pairing up on when we are putting in place some learning design, some new trainings or workshop formats, doing those together is a great opportunity to, I'm not asking for help because I want to hand over the work. No, I am asking for help because I believe together diverse colleagues will create a better product for the organization. So it's a genius ask, and it's an opportunity again to informally collaborate. Sometimes at this point, we may run into senior management saying, why are 3 people working on the same task? So informal leadership at some point will need the support of the organization to, when these dynamic collaboration behaviors emerge, to have supporting sponsoring management who value that. and support these informal projects and efforts. Bias for action. Any one of you have done the marshmallow challenge? Building prototypes quickly from spaghetti towers and a small piece of tape. That's a great way to introduce people to run experiments, more experiments. Bias for action, an example could be publishing prototypes, and maybe you have heard this word dog fooding. So in an organization with multiple teams, we publish prototypes in some shared digital platform with dog food. In other words, internal colleagues, we eat our own dog food. We use the prototypes and we give feedback. And of course, it must go also to users, real users and customers, but we have this internal practice. It's not necessarily a great practice for, removing bias. We might have, kinder audience, employees testing other employees' products, but it's excellent practice we found for knowledge sharing and visibility of what are all the great things that are going on in our organization. So having a bias for action as an internal leader, default to transparency, share your work, and share your early prototypes. And finally, the fifth one was looking for a suitable image, offering critique and help. Personally, I find this one the most challenging. It's almost easier to critique someone's work, maybe you agree or disagree. For me, it's easier to challenge someone's work if they are from another team, or if we are less closely connected. And this is actually the drawback of teams who have worked together for a long time. They become socially close, almost friends, often, and it becomes very hard to critique and challenge each other's work. Here, I recommend the work by Kim Scott called Radical Candor. Maybe some of you are using this process. It's a nice grid, and it's about how we give the critique. The critique needs to be critical. It's about criticizing the proposal, the idea. But when we give this critique, we need to make sure, one, that the person is interested, ready to receive it, and we care about the person. We need to show our care about how it is received and how much of it can be received. So radical candor. And for those of you who do design work, so design critiques is another practice to look up. There are great mirror boards or well-documented steps that we can learn from the UX design community, how to give critique, have a critique session in our teams, and not just do sprint reviews. So critics should be always about the idea, not the person. And with these behaviors, we have reached the end of the 5. So after this session, if you go back to your teams, maybe one retrospective, you could take the slides, which I will share with you, and you could say which of these behaviors could be more relevant for us to start with. It's an invitation, it's not a must, but the whole organization will be better if we now go out, each of us from our team, and start role modeling these behaviors. So don't wait for formal leadership to role model informal leadership. Start with yourself and focus on other teams. Okay, and my slides dropped. And so what can we do as a leader? After this, it's about finding and identifying and measuring informal leaders in our organization. And we coaches, we do this instinctively because we also follow informal leaders. We are also human. But I would like to give you another perspective, and I'm actually working with an analytics company, and there are many of these good software companies who help us analyze the social network. The whole domain is called organizational network analysis. So through basically 2 methods, 1, surveys or interviews, and 2, observing behaviors based on the communication of the company, whether it's email or Slack channel, communication patterns, through anonymized log data, we can get the collaboration patterns visualized by these software tools. And visually seeing the patterns, any points which are in some kind of central, well-connected part of the network could be interesting for us. Of course, further analysis is needed, and we may always do network analysis with an assumption or a question we want to answer. So we are going towards agility, and we maybe have a smell or an assumption that our teams are disconnected due to COVID or remote working. We want to measure or discover how could we improve cross-team collaboration and avoid siloing. So then we will look for, how much, to what extent are colleagues trusting each other across teams. Who are the connecting people, the bridging people, their different roles, how many connections these bridging roles have. And also, importantly, are these colleagues overloaded? So is all the connection between two teams via the product owner, familiar picture, via some technical architect who is mentoring everyone and is overloaded? So we can see these patterns in our network. And finally, there is a famous pharmaceutical company who actually did a massive network analysis study, about 5,000 people in Switzerland, and they found that only less than half of their managers in formal leadership roles were informal leaders as well. So they realized that not everyone potentially would be followed without the formal authority and the formal role. So, how do we then take the next steps? So it's disappointing news, but then maybe it's training, maybe it's inspiration, maybe it's giving options to people to look at other roles and rotating leadership roles. So ideally, there will be an overlap between our formal leadership network and the informal leadership network, and we nurture the new generation of informal leaders. And we can do that by role modeling these behaviors ourselves as coaches as well. So us as coaches, taking the 5 behaviors ourselves, being connected in the network, documenting our quest, not doing it alone, inviting others, asking for help, and offering critique as well as nurture and support. And on my last point of overload, there are many ways our connecting points or informal leaders can be overloaded. The first one is in the middle. Formal leadership tends to go always to the go-to person, the person who tends to volunteer. They get more work and even more work on their shoulders. But these informal leaders can be also overloaded simply by disseminating information. They are the one tapped into what's going on in the organization. They may be overloaded by people seeking advice or simply being too connected, so they get lots of communication requests. Yeah? So when we notice this happening in our organization, by creating opportunities, inviting participation, inviting more informal collaboration, we should engage more and more and rely on our second round or second circle, widening the circle of our informal leaders we go to and connect with. Last but not least, I think in this conference you already have a backpack of books virtually. I would like to leave you with a few more important books. Inviting leadership, the leadership behaviors for sponsors to nurture this informal network in your organization. It's all about inviting participation on interesting challenges. If you are driving innovation or want to encourage it, the second book is relevant to you. We'll go into detail of network types and collaboration behaviors. Again, a third book on leadership by Harrison Owen, creator of Open Space, and last but not least, the Open Space Handbook for running large-scale gatherings in a participatory manner. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you and with any questions, continue this conversation. Thank you, everyone.